Matthew Fink, better known as Dr. Fink, is a renowned keyboardist, record producer, and songwriter. Fink is a principal member of The Revolution, the most successful musical faction of the legendary icon Prince. In 1985, Fink co-starred in the Academy Award-winning movie Purple Rain. The soundtrack amassed several Grammy Awards and went on to sell over 25 million copies worldwide, and is ranked among the best albums in popular music history. Fink has credits on multiple Prince albums including Controversy, Sign of the Times, and Dirty Mind. Following Prince's passing in 2016, Fink has reunited with the original members of The Revolution for an ongoing national tour. It is my honor to welcome Dr. Fink.
This is Dr. Fink from Prince and the Revolution, and it's time to face the music with Joby Rogers.
Well, thank you for taking the time, Matt. I truly appreciate it. Our first formal interview anyway.
My pleasure.
Again, it was in the late 70s when you heard a demo tape of a fellow Minneapolitan named Prince Rogers Nelson. After listening to the tape, you asked who his band was. And when you were informed that the vocal, every instrument, the production, the writing was all performed by Prince and Prince alone, what was your initial reaction to that news?
I guess I was shocked a little bit, maybe surprised that somebody that age, who was the same age as me at that time. I was 20. He had just turned 20. I think he was only 19, when Bobby brought that to me. He might have even still been 18, I'm not sure. Anyway, he was awfully young, and I just said, wow, Bobby Z, Rivkin, the drummer, future drummer at that point. He played the demo for me while I was on a break during a gig that night that I was performing at. And I was just flabbergasted. I said, wow. Never met anybody like that could play all the instruments, write it at that age, and perform it flawlessly like that on a recording. It was truly unique and awe-inspiring.
Soon afterwards, you were invited to, was it Pepe Willie's basement?
His basement, where they were holding rehearsals. Now, Prince had a place that was an old building called Dell's Tire Mart. So when he put the first incarnation of the band together I believe it was early spring of 78, when the album came out, and he had been auditioning people. So they had almost a whole band together at that point. At the beginning of that summer, they started rehearsing with some people. They had one keyboard player that they liked that they were going to go with, but that keyboard player ended up not doing it. He didn't stick around too long. Very famous guy, though, from Minneapolis, Ricky Peterson, great guy, good friend of mine.
This was your initial audition for Prince. So
yeah, well, this was before that. He already had a band together, and he wanted to hire Ricky. And Ricky just is an amazing player and producer in his own right. And he just thought, well, this might be too limiting for me, I think, when I talked to him, because then you're just a side man, blah, blah. He would have been too busy to do what he was going to do. I think that's what weighed on his decision. Ricky came back years later after I left, and helped run Paisley Park and produce stuff for Prince, including The Most Beautiful Girl in the World.
Was there any trepidation knowing that you were auditioning for a prodigy?
Well, sure, a little nervous, of course, but then the door opened for me because Ricky didn't decide to do it, and they kept auditioning other keyboard players. They even auditioned Yanni, of all people, who was based in Minneapolis at the time.
Imagine that.
So Prince didn't feel like Yanni was a good fit. But regardless of that, then I heard that the door had opened again for auditions, and then I called Bobby, and then I called Prince's manager at the time, Owen Husney, and literally hounded them for a solid 3 weeks off and on, just calling him, hey, can I get an audition? Hey, I want an audition, because I told Bobby when Bobby played the demo for me a year before he had his record deal, I said, hey, when he's ready to put a band together, give me a crack at this, to meet him and play with him. So at that point, I was definitely vying for a job, and sure enough, they decided to let me audition.
So you land the gig,
Mhm.
and over the years, you and I had several conversations about Prince. So, what fascinated me the most were your stories of Prince's work ethic and extraordinary perception when it came to his creativity. He truly was, by all stretches of the word, a musical genius. So, without getting too technical, walk me through an early typical recording session with Prince.
For the most part, he kind of knew what he wanted before he went in the studio for songs, because he'd always work out. Or sometimes it would be music that would inspire the creative generation of a song, or the lyric and hook would come first before the music even. Sometimes you'd have a title, or you'd have lyrics started, or he'd have both kind of simultaneously going in his head and ready to go before he went in the studio. And the really interesting thing is, the early on, one of the processes with the song Dirty Mind, which was musically partially written by me, it was mainly my musical parts that created that song, but that he arranged around it. And it was strictly a jam session at rehearsal. One day I started riffing on something and some chord progression, how you just making stuff up, improvising during a jam. And he latched on to something I was playing kind of on my own at that point, without the band. I was just messing around before rehearsal. And he goes, "Hey, that's interesting." And then he had the band jam on it for a while. And then, "Why don't you come over to the house tonight and we'll work on it?" So I went there, and he said, "Okay, I'm going to play drums, and you're going to do the keyboard just like you did today. And then I'm going to tell you this. Here's the arrangement I'm thinking." And then we played it together based on what he said instrumentally. I had no idea what he was going to do with the lyric or melody yet. Even he hadn't even brought that element in. So we laid the music down, and then he went, "You know what? This song needs a bridge. I've got an idea." So he put the bridge section in, and we redid it again with all the elements, and then added that and changed the arrangement down. And then he even did a few guitar parts after it while I was sitting there. Still no lyric or melody. And then the next day, he comes to rehearsal with a finished version of the song, with the lyrics and the melody done, all the guitars done, everything added that he wanted to add, elements, blah, 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 all vocals. And I just went, you did that after I left? He goes, "Yeah." So very
Obviously,
prolific and creative, just all improvising on the spot and just writing the lyrics that night. Like I said, I saw there times when later on down the road, he was just writing lyrics too, to start with, or have an idea. So it was all over the map, his process. But that was how that one went. And then there's been other times when, he's thinking as he goes, just like that. And then he got so proficient that I'd watch him lay down parts, fast forward to 1988. One time we're in the studio late at night after a show. He takes the whole band in to work on something for Rosie Gaines, and we're in London. I laid out, he wanted me on the acoustic piano, big grand piano, on doing a part, and whatever the whole band did our rhythm parts for this song for Rosie that he taught us, by the way, on the spot, chord progression, everything. And then I watched him do some more keyboards on top of what I did, like some synthesizer work and then some guitars. And I swear to God, every single take was one take off the top of his head as he went. That blew me away. That blew me away because, I'd seen him in earlier years too, where, yeah, he had to do a few takes, but now we got to that point where it's like stream of consciousness out of the tips of your fingers as you're playing the parts.
It's like he's just channeled for the
Yeah,
music.
channeling. Just truly astounding. Truly astounding. Really. I hadn't seen it. I've met a few other musicians in my day who have perfect pitch. And some people may or may not know what that is if they're listening. But perfect pitch is when you, like, let's say I played a chord or a note on the piano for you. You could say that's an A, or that's a B, or that's a C minor 7, because they know they can hear what key it's in and the elements of the chord, and they know just by listening. And I knew a couple people that could transcribe classical music or film score music of other people's that had been written, or like Steely Dan songs. We all know how complex those can be from a jazz kind of standpoint, the chordal standpoint, harmonically. And they could write down the chords on a chart as the song was playing, as they're learning it. So they could just, they're hearing it and they're writing the chords as it goes along without really stopping the music. But, you know, boom, that quick. I've never been able to do that. Read charts and write charts, but I have what's called relative pitch, which means if you tell me it's in the key of C, then I can tell what other chords may be going off of that. Most people have that. People born with perfect pitch they're few and far between, but go ahead.
Prince has accomplished so much,
Mm-hmm.
not just in his personal career, but for the industry as well. So that kind of creativity that breaks boundaries is extremely rare.
Mm-hmm.
And being on the front lines as you were, how would you define his drive, the discipline, dedication to his art? I mean, how did you in particular keep pace with that?
Well, you know, the only time you keep pace as a sideman is when he asks you to either work with him on something, or here's the finished songs I did already that nobody else played on. Go learn them now for the tour. Here's the set that we're going to do. You know, so there for any given tour or album, there were always a few songs I would play on in the studio. I had a few co-writes along the way with him, which were usually only instrumental parts that he took inspiration from. He never really brought anybody else's lyrics or melodies into play very much, very rarely, if at all. So yeah, what that was like was truly, again, something else, because you're kind of playing a little bit of catch up at that point. If you're not in the studio with them and becoming familiar with the songs while they're being laid down, then all of a sudden you get a tape and it's like, okay, we're going to start rehearsing in a couple of weeks. Go learn all this. You know, that would happen a lot. So from tour to tour. So that was where my job was like, oh, I get to be this great sideman for this amazing artist. And playing what he did, you know, and it's like being in a cover band, but being in a really high end cover band, because you're the guy playing the covered songs for the genius.
He's clearly a perfectionist. That's
what
I'm saying. And exactly. He certainly expects nothing short of brilliant musicianship.
Yeah, I had to emulate him as a keyboard player.
So
primarily because he's a great keyboard player too.
So what do you think it was about you in particular that made you rise above the fray and continue to work with him for more than a decade?
Here's the thing. Let me just preface that by saying there's a lot of great technical keyboard players out there. There's great players all over the place that I respect, that I grew up with, that were inspirations for me. And I know that I've been an inspiration to others because they've told me. But, you know, what it does is, you know, you rise to the occasion because he's so great, you know, and you have to just hone in on it and do it, you know, otherwise you'll fail and it's like, see ya, don't need to, because you're not keeping up with me, or you can't handle it technically or whatever. You know, it was a challenge, really, frankly, to be honest. A lot of it was challenging, and I was always learning. And, you know I taught him some of my tricks of the trade, but at the same time, on his own, just
was he open mind? Was he open to learning from others as well?
Always. Of course. Wow. Of course he was. He absorbed everything though too. He was so good at that. You know, he could take all your stuff and then just fuse that with everything else he knew too. You know, so it just truly amazing. And the drive was amazing. I know I was never that driven. You know, I just didn't have that in me per se. But I never had the desire to learn guitar that much, really. Right. I tried, but I didn't really find it to be something I enjoyed as much as playing the keyboard, because that's what I grew up with as my main instrument. I loved drums. I played a lot of drums growing up. I had my own drum set, and I'm a decent drum programmer. You know, I've done some stuff for other people that sounds like a real drummer. You know, gets pretty close. But
from the very beginning, you metamorphosed with Prince through several band lineups, including the Revolution, NPG.
Pre-Revolution, then the Revolution, and the MPG. Yes, I did 4 year stint with the MPG after the Revolution was let go.
what was it that told you to stay the course with him?
I just, it just was, you know, I would have stayed with him longer too, probably, if there hadn't been some extenuating circumstances at the
Yeah.
time. But I had no reason to leave, you know. If he wanted to let me go, then hey, you know, time to let go because he wants to change, you know. But he didn't do that, and at that point, he didn't really want to let me go when I left. And it was the kind of thing that when I did leave, I wasn't really intending to leave. I just wanted a little break. I was doing a project, and I said, "Hey, I can't do that one gig that you're trying to have me do on short notice right now. It's really hard, but I will do it if you'll help me." And I was starting this, one of my first productions with some project as a producer, and I really wanted to do it. So it was a tough decision. And I said, well, I'm not going to do that gig. Can you get a fill in? And he got a fill in. And then that was the end of my job. So that's how it goes, you know, with Prince.
Every incarnation of Prince's bands have been very diverse, gender wise, race wise, age, all aspects.
Right.
How intentional was that? And was it based on their musicianship or a combination of their musicianship and their cultural or social circumstance?
All the above.
All of it.
Yeah. But he never verbalized that to anybody.
No.
He said, hey, I put this multiracial, multi-sex band together on purpose because, you know, he doesn't do that. He just does it. But anyway,
what do you think was the most important aspect to him?
He had other elements of his personality that I felt he could have exploited more too, especially when it came to film work. You know, I've always said this in other interviews. He was so funny behind the scenes, such a great sense of humor and prankster.
I just watched his bit that he did on the Muppets years ago.
Oh yeah, yeah, it was cute. It was cute, but that was very family oriented. We're talking about a whole nother side of him that's like, whoa, okay, you and Eddie Murphy should have done a film together. You know what I mean, right? He would have been so great with a sidekick or being the sidekick to someone of an Eddie Murphy type or a Richard Pryor, anybody like that, or even just on his own. I mean, you know, Under the Cherry Moon had elements, but he wasn't really getting to show his sense of humor as much either. He kind of put that on Jerome in that film.
Yeah.
But I always thought Prince should have done one more movie where it really showed him off in a comedic role.
Yeah.
It would have been really good. It would have been really funny. Believe me.
Regarding the doctor bit, I heard that you started with a paratrooper outfit jumpsuit, and that that belonged to Prince, and then you had.
Well, it didn't belong to him. It didn't fit him. Somebody gave it to him. It was too big. He said, "I got this in my closet. Try this."
And there was some kind of Elton John symbol that was out there for a bit, and a black and white jailbird outfit. So, whose idea was the Dr. Fink, the surgical mask, and the doctor outfit?
That was my idea, born out of necessity, due to the fact that Rick James, who we were opening for in 1979, our first big tour opening for a well-known act, R&B act, pop act, a funk act like Rick, and he was wearing a jail suit on his song "Bustin' Out of L7," so I had to change horses in midstream, so to speak. It was actually like the second or third show of the tour. I believe we were in Chicago, and Prince comes to me right at sound check after, and he says, you know, the headliner's wearing a jail suit on that one song.
Oh, geez.
I go, yeah, and he goes, well, because he's the headliner, I want you to change your image. I go, yeah, but he's only wearing it on one song. Who cares? No, man, no, he's the headliner. He's wearing the jail suit. Even if it's on one song, it's too redundant. We can't. I go, did Rick come to you and tell me to change my look? No, this is all me, all my idea. I go, okay, so what do you want me to do? You got any ideas? He goes, no. Do you have any now?
Wing it, boys.
He said, did you have any other choices in your closet waiting for you back home before you left, or whatever you did to find the jail outfit? Which, by the way, I got at a place called Teener's Costume Shop in Minneapolis. I bought it It was kind of like you could rent shit there, right? And this was a place that like somebody had worn it many times and it was clean, but you could tell it was worn a little bit. I said, "You want to sell that?" "Oh yeah, sure, we'll sell it." So I bought, and then at that time, I looked at scrub suits too. It was my secondary choice at the time, but I thought it was too bland, because it's kind of like a powder blue color, just a surgeon's outfit. I thought, nah, doctor's not a great idea. It's not flashy enough. The guy in the jail suit's like black and white stripes. It goes with the keyboards and the black and white keys. I thought it's kind of cool. And who does that? Nobody's doing it. It harkens back a bit to Jailhouse Rock, when the early years of rock too. So I just thought that was kind of fun. And plus it was new wave was happening at that time. We were kind of like the new wave funksters, So I thought, okay, this will be different. Prince really embraced that image too, by the way, because he wanted me to be the quirky guy. He even said that, "I want you to be the guy that appeals to the quirky people." And I went, "Really? You think I'm quirky?" He goes, "No, but I need someone in the band to be quirky."
You're it.
I go, "Okay, I'll be quirky then. Quirky Fink, they call me." And so I became the quirky guy. But then the doctor thing happened. And Prince, he had the light bulb going over the head, went ding. And he went, "I like that. Let's try that one." So he sent our wardrobe gal out to a uniform shop in Chicago somewhere to get the doctor outfit together, including all the, accoutrement.
What is some internal dialogue of what Matthew Robert Fink thinks of Dr. Fink?
Well, it was, in the beginning of it, I was a little questioning it a bit. Like, oh my God, is this going to stick? I'm going to be known like this for the rest of my life. Do I want to be known for this for the rest of my life? If Prince gets famous, we weren't famous yet, but if he gets famous and then I get famous along with him, I'm going to be the doctor and that's it. And there's been other doctors. You had Doc Severinsen, you had Dr. Hook at that time, who, by the way, introduced us on the Midnight Special earlier that year before I became the doctor. But Dr. Hook never wore a doctor suit. He just was Dr. Hook was his name. And then there was Dr. John, who didn't wear a doctor suit, but he was Dr. John. And then are there any other doctors? Okay, so those are the main famous music doctor name guys. But nobody really wore the scrub suit yet.
No.
Not really. So I became the literal Dr. Fink, the guy who actually puts on the scrub suit and pretends to be a surgeon. So that was it. So I was a little wary of it. And then Prince kept saying, "I want you to wear the doctor suit in public all the time."
Oh dear.
Especially during like once Purple Rain 1999 era, and we were really picking up steam and getting more and more, known. And so I said, okay. So he did that on purpose because he wanted, it's like, don't leave your persona ever. Don't do it. Be always on, always on. And he was always on with the clothes and the whole image. You never saw him not being Prince the persona.
No. So he walks into the studio with a song like "Jack You Off." So did you or any other band members have any concerns about how these songs would be perceived, received by the public, by critics, by agents, by promoters? Did you think, oh my God, that's not going to happen, this is over?
Well, it certainly was concerning. And I definitely spoke to people about it in hushed tones, okay, we're going to be doing this is too much, And then I kept thinking, well, Frank Zappa, he gets pretty out there and he's very popular. So in spite of being controversial. So Prince was just doing the album was controversy. Jack You Off. How more controversial can you be writing a song called Jack You Off and people being titillated by that terminology? He learned how to manipulate and create controversy, ergo the album controversy. He just went for broke. F you. I'm going to say this stuff, and who cares? If you embrace it, you embrace it. If not, not. And I respected that. I never criticized it. Really, never been done, and it's really scary, dirty, Jack You Offy. I didn't do that. But I thought it a little bit. I was concerned. Believe me, I went to other people in the band. are you sure we should be doing this? You know, but I went with it. I thought it was great, really, to be honest. I thought, okay, we're going to shake things up now, damn it. This kid's got a lot of guts. Right.
Prince opened for the Rolling Stones at request of Mick Jagger, personally, at the LA Coliseum, October 81, I believe. So visually and musicality wise, the Stones and Prince are at opposite ends of the spectrum. So during that concert, that show, you guys were met with some harsh reaction from the Stones fans, thousands of them. So at that time, the Stones were still using Hell's Angels for security. With how things went down at Altamont, were there any concerns from you guys?
No, I didn't. I personally had no concerns, but I was taken completely by surprise when people in the audience started throwing stuff at us and flipping us the bird, you know, from the audience. So and booing and everything else. That really shocked me. I didn't expect that. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute, this is a pretty hardcore audience, Rolling Stoney. For all we know, there could have been some white supremacists in there, you know, type of people.
So what do you think Mick's train of thought was? Was he a Prince fan before?
He's a Prince fan. He loved Prince and wanted to bring Prince to the masses. Nice. He wanted to give Prince a break because he respected Prince for his musicality and his talent. No question. That's why we were on the bill, because of Mick.
Yeah, someone just sent me a copy of the Rolling Stones with Prince opening act tour shirt from that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They're up on eBay for like $400.
Oh my God, I want one of those. I should have gotten one somehow. I don't know why I didn't back then. I never got one.
By your own account, you said that the 1999 and Purple Rain tours were pure craziness. Mm-hmm. And I know that being an opening act for Rick James is a tale of debauchery all in itself, probably. So keeping it PG-13 during that time frame, what do you think is the most rock and roll thing you've ever seen or done, if you want to say, on the road?
Oh, well, you know, in those days, we weren't as wild as some bands could be. You know, some of those big 80s hair bands were way more rowdy than we were, you know, as far as doing naughty things, so to speak. Not that we didn't, you know, have our share of groupies around and stuff like that. We had a little bit of that going on, but nothing major. And I, from a personal standpoint, did not take advantage of that side of the rock and roll lifestyle. I always had someone back in Minneapolis I was dating or having a relationship with, you know, and I didn't, you know, want to bring anything back home with me that was not you know, needed.
Yeah, we'll leave it there. Even though Purple Rain is credited as the first official Revolution album, most of the Revolution appeared in 1999. And after the critical and commercial success of 1999, was there any tangible pressure for the follow-up album?
Not that I could feel. I think Prince's confidence level was so high that he just, like I said, he just knew that he would come up with something great, you know, every time. He didn't, like I said, he never really said, oh, I'm really kind of scared here to try to outdo what I did. Or he would never ever let on that he was not feeling confident if he was.
Right. Purple Rain emerged around the same time that MTV was finding its footing and becoming basically a necessity in the music business. Right. As far as how music was being promoted and marketed, MTV was necessary. So did Prince have a sense of what was to come regarding the image of the Revolution? And did you notice any adjustments he made to approach this new video reality?
No, I mean, he seemed to really, more than anything, his videos emphasized performance, you know, band performances. Granted, the set would change or the concept of the video would change, the look, the art direction. But a lot of it always ended up with the band performing, you know, after, like when you look at When Doves Cry, it's like him doing his thing and being crawling on the floor and getting in the bathtub and doing all this stuff and showing scenes from the movie. But then then the band is there performing. So it was always that way. Whereas with Michael Jackson and Thriller and some other stuff from that era, they were doing theatrical videos and doing conceptual videos. Some artists, depending on who you were. Some couldn't afford to go that elaborate, so it would be performance videos.
Now, you're going to know this, and this has been a question of mine that has been out there, and I've never found a really true answer. Was there ever, I mean, besides what is out there on video of Prince and Michael Jackson sharing the same stage because of James Brown, was there any real meeting between Prince and Michael? Because there's not a single picture of them out there together anywhere.
Yeah, there was definitely a meeting. I don't know if there was more than one. I just know of a story where when Prince was recording at Sunset Sound, which he used quite often in LA, that Michael wanted to visit with him and hang out. And then they hung out a bit and talked. And I even think they played a little basketball out on the basketball court. But they talked, they respected one another. I heard a story that Michael might have been through Quincy Jones, not sure. I met Quincy and his engineer, Bruce Sweden, who's from Minneapolis, actually, originally, and used to run a studio called Creation Audio, started that studio here in Minneapolis. But they came out to Paisley Park and literally watched the Love Sexy tour rehearsals, dress rehearsals at Paisley Park. And they sat right behind me on the stage the whole time and watched the show, because it was a big round stage and they were just off right by me there. And I think they were in town to talk to Prince about being in the Bad video with Michael.
Yeah, I saw that the interview Prince did with that, and Prince was like, the reason it fell through was because of the opening lyrics.
Yeah, your butt is mine. Yeah.
He goes, I'm not saying that to him, and I know he ain't saying it to me.
Right. So I'm just saying, you know, that it is interesting that they were even thinking that the two of them could do something together. I personally thought it was oil and water, but
yeah, very different, but alike in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So let's do some name dropping here. We have a mutual acquaintance, Albert Magnoli, the director of Purple Rain, and he later went on to manage Prince for a couple of years. He is from my home state here in Connecticut, and he's also my cousin on my mom's side.
Right.
So this movie endeavor was a risk from all aspects.
Right.
It was Prince's, who is notoriously shy. It was his acting debut. It was Magnoli's first attempt at directing a major motion picture. So historically speaking, this genre of films where the musician becomes the actor can be the making or breaking of a career. On one end, we have Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band, which ruined a few careers. And then we have Kiss meets the Phantom of the Park, which was just, yeah. And on the other end of that spectrum, you have Lady Gaga, A Star is Born, Eminem and 8 Mile, Whitney and the Bodyguard, Bette Midler and The Rose. Were there any apprehensions on either side of Magnolia or Prince that the substantial risk for both parties involved?
Well, if there was, I was never privy to their, being worried about that. See, Prince he would never talk negatively about anything. He just would dive headlong and do it. And that's, I think, why he succeeded, because he kept his confidence level always and belief in himself to such a level that he couldn't fail. That's my opinion about him.
Yeah.
And all that. how that attitude is, and how it can be.
So Purple Rain went on to be both a critical and commercial success, won Prince an Academy Award for Best Original Song Score. In 2019, it was added to the Library of Congress for being culturally and historically and aesthetically significant.
Yeah.
Would Purple Rain, the album, have been the phenomenon it was without the movie?
I doubt it. Well, no, wait a minute. Hang on. I spoke too soon. Well, first of all, you had the momentum from 1999, but the next album, if it hadn't been associated with a movie, would have been a completely different album. I'm sorry, would have been probably a lot different. Who knows what, because the songs that ended up in the movie were like he wrote 70 songs or something that he and Magnoli went through to pick out what would work for the film. And there was still one missing song when Al said, I think we got most of it, but there's something missing. We need one song that encapsulates the whole vibe of the film. And that's when Prince did Purple Rain and came up with that. And that, so the inspiration for that song, it's a different catalyst because it was a movie. So yes, I think it would have been different, may not have been as successful. Obviously, I think it would have been multi-platinum because 1999 was already double platinum at that point, had gone higher. You probably would have seen the triple platinum album on the next one, maybe even more, a 4. People were regularly selling 4 to 7 million records in those days for their, the top 20 albums, top 10, and on Billboard, you'd see a lot of multi-platinum records. I think it still would have been a good album, successful. It wouldn't have been called Purple Rain. Would have been something else.
So, setting aside the artist, I've always regarded Prince as an extremely sensitive and private person who spent his entire life basically trying to bring people of all genders, races, religions together through his music. So all artists, no matter what genre or level they're on, at some point have succumbed to the toll of and the extreme pressures and challenges that the business takes on you physically and emotionally. Prince dealt with this, as you know, on a massive level. And frankly, in my opinion, it's an impossibility for any human being to navigate that environment and still remain completely mentally sane, stable, happy.
Meaning grounded.
Yeah. I can assume that you witnessed some of the more sinister side of the business just because you're in a band that had such a great success and you had access to Prince, with tabloids and hangers-ons seeking information on on a very private person like Prince. Was it frustrating when you realized that this wasn't just going to be about the music?
Yeah. Well, no, I didn't in the beginning. I didn't think that it was going to be like that. So yeah, that it became more than I expected. Absolutely. Than what I knew was coming. Yeah.
Was it tough to navigate that new reality?
A little bit, especially during that era, that time, the heyday in the 80s, because you're in the bubble, you're in that bubble with him. And even our management people call it, you're going to be in the bubble now. And then you'll be traveling and you'll be doing playing and touring and doing this and that, and you'll be in a bubble. It'll be like being in a bubble. But he did complain to me about it once. He did say, he says, "You're lucky." I go, "Why?" "Because you can go out in public, easily without being, always recognized every 2 seconds." So, that element of it that makes you become more secluded if you don't want to be harassed or whatever by people. So I know it was early, and we did a theater in San Francisco once where we weren't opening for another act. He wanted to try a headlining in a theater. And after the show, we went back out the rear of the building to get in the cars and go through the stage door. And we had no security at that time because we didn't really need it yet. We didn't think we needed it. We didn't have the money really yet to do it. And that was a mistake because he turned all the women on so much that they were waiting out back, and they shredded the shirt off his body as we walked. It was like the female gauntlet, like the Hard Day's Night, a scene out of Hard Day's Night, only worse.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
there were scratches on people
Yeah.
from it, because I'm not kidding. It was shredded. The shirt was shredded off his body, literally like piranha.
It's been 5 years now, this month,
Yeah.
that Prince's sudden and unexpected passing on the 21st of 2016.
Yeah.
He was 57, I believe, at the time. And that really shook the music industry. With artists like Prince, Petty, Michael, seemingly hiding depression and addiction from family, band members, fans, friends. In retrospect, for you, were there any signs of Prince's struggles with addiction and depression?
A little bit. There were hints of it at that time. When I left the band, by like the last couple of years, there were some hints of drug stuff. And you know what's so interesting about him is that for the majority of my time with him, he was dead set against drug use.
Wow.
You know, like no marijuana, no cocaine, no hallucinogenics, no pills, whatever you want to call it. And I think the only reason he became dependent on those opioids was because he was having hip problems
Yeah.
caused by years of jumping off pianos in high spaces and landing and stretching. And God, you know, who knows? You know, he had a lot of stuff. And he did need hip replacement surgery towards the end of his life. You may have heard that, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So I don't know if I think he got one of the hips done. I don't know if he got the second one done before he passed. I know that he needed it. And yeah, it's unfortunate that he, along with many, 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 many other people in the United States and around the world, have had addiction to opioids.
Yeah.
Due to the practices of the pharmaceutical companies and the abuse of the prescription.
It's hard because when you got the fame that Prince has or Michael has, nobody around you is going to tell you no. And you publicly stated that Prince struggled in silence with health problems for years. And you said you were skeptical when you heard excuses from Prince's reps and you speculated it was not good. Was there any inclination to state your concerns at the time?
No, because at that time it wasn't apparent to me.
No.
Not really. I mean, later on, I heard some stories about the Black Album, things around that, why I didn't release it, and having done some ecstasy or something, and
Right.
somebody got him ecstasy, you know, and then he was influenced by whatever experience he had to not put that album up.
No.
And that was clearly stated by somebody in another interview. So I didn't bring that story out, but I heard it later. So, you know, we've all experimented. Not everyone, but many of us have experimented with things over the years.
Yeah.
We're human beings. We all make mistakes. Just like anything, too much of a good thing is not good.
Nope. So in the mid 80s, around the dissolution of the revolution, there were times when Prince would not even acknowledge former bandmates, which prompted a threat, I think, by Wendy and Lisa and Brown Mark to leave. As someone who worked with Prince before and after the revolution, you must have witnessed this kind of conduct on more than one occasion. Do you think that this idiosyncrasy was part of Prince's creative process or agenda, that he theorized that frequently changed band members is what enabled him to continue moving forward?
Possibly.
Yeah.
He never verbalized that to me. I don't really think he wanted to really disband the revolution. I think there was just certain things going on that needed to change for him. You know, it was just one of those things. Just like any band, you know, bands go through evolution and change.
Did you ever have the opportunity to see Prince from the audience perspective?
Yeah. Well, I saw him the first time I ever saw that. was when he sat in with Lionel Richie when Sheila E. was on tour with Lionel playing percussion, and when he was Lionel was on tour in Minneapolis that year. I think it was like right after the Purple Rain tour or just before it. I can't remember. And he got up on stage and did a song, and I was out in the audience watching that and went, "Holy buckets! I didn't know." Because I always see him from behind, you know, and I saw him out front, and then the charisma and the projection of that personality hitting through an arena, that guy. Then I really saw it.
After Prince's passing in 2016, you reunited with the original Revolution, including Lisa and Wendy, Bobby Z, and Brown Mark. The Revolution is arguably the best incarnation of Prince's storied career. Whose idea was it to reunite?
Well, everybody's really. I mean,
Yeah.
first of all, we reunited because of his passing, to just, you know, go through the mourning and the services and all the stuff associated with it. And while we were there, we all just went, "Do you think we should do a tribute show to him eventually, or should we do this?" You think everybody, it was on everybody's mind, so everybody pretty much had a consensus at that point to do something, not necessarily tour full on, but then once we thought about it more and more, we made the conscious decision to see how far and how long we could take it, just to get out and play again.
Did you or any other bandmates profess any reservations? Did anyone think that this might come off as avaricious, or did you work through that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, you know, we kind of polled our fans too and say, "Hey, do you think we should come out and play? Would you come and see us?" You know, we started talking to friends and other fans we knew, and they said, "Yeah, by all means, do it. We want that." There was no negativity from anyone when it came to that.
Wow.
They welcomed it.
I certainly did.
Yeah, so it's okay.
What's different besides the obvious with working with the Revolution again? It's well known that Prince was in total control, and without that, someone in that position, how are things decided among the group?
It's a democracy. I mean, everybody, you know, if we're stuck on something or trying to come up with a transition, everybody can chime in if they want and say, "Hey, I got an idea." And sometimes it flies and sometimes it doesn't. And we just move on if it doesn't. And if it does, we learn it and do it, you know, or try to find something different. You know, some people have been more proactive in the musical director's seat than others in the group.
Is there an unannounced leader?
No.
It's a round table kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you and I have met on a few occasions here in my neck of the woods in Connecticut, and I think we met in New York City a couple of times. Thanks to your invites, by the way. I've had the opportunity to see the Revolution at a couple of different events. And in my observation, and to my surprise, the show was not a recreation. No one was up there trying to mimic Prince's moves or sound like him or look like him. This felt more like a celebration of Prince and the Revolution, and not just a celebration of Prince. It was an education for me, an enlightenment into the creativity you all were a part of. So what emotions flowed through you being up there with everyone on such an elemental missing of Prince, but still as the Revolution?
It's very bittersweet.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, because, you know, it's great to be playing together again, but without him, it's never going to be the same.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like fun. We're pleasing our fans, ourselves. We're, you know, helping them to heal through the process of grievance about grieving Prince's loss, as well as ourselves. And it was a good thing for healing purposes, and also to show ourselves that we could go out and play again and bring that music out again, as well as we did it in the past.
Now that you regrouped with the Revolution, how do you personally carry the heritage and the legacy of the Revolution forward through all these years, but still keep it fresh and relevant for yourself, as well as new fans you pick up along the way?
For me personally, I'll play anytime, anywhere, as long as it makes sense. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there'll come a time when someone in the group will say, "I've had it. I'm done. I don't want to do this much longer." I mean, originally, a lot of the people in the group said, "We're going to do this for 3 to 5 years. That's it." And I said, "Okay, whatever you guys want to do."
Once Paisley Park was established and opened, I read that you had the rare opportunity to walk into the mythical vault that was rumored to be filled with over 8,000 Prince songs. So he literally has decades of unreleased Prince material. And it's just known fact that he has more unreleased material than he has released material. First of all, walk me through that experience of going into the vault. And are there any songs in Prince's catalog that for you weren't singles or hits that you would like to see get their moment in the sun?
But most of the stuff that I liked that that I felt should come out came out on the Sign of the Times compilation last year.
Okay.
So there's a lot on there that I went, yeah, okay, that's good. I'm glad they did that. There may be other material I don't know about that I haven't heard even. I'm sure there's a lot of that.
Have you been in there?
Yes, in the past, many years ago when we worked at Paisley. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I've been in the vault at that time for sure. But after I was out of the group, I'm sure there was a ton more material added to the vault.
Following your work with Prince, your musical contributions have also appeared on releases for Lips Incorporated, The Time, Vanity 6. You're now at the helm of your own music production companies like Vermeer Virtual Media Entertainment and Starview. That keeps you extremely busy. Tell me about your current music production projects for up and coming artists, as well as music for, I think you're doing soundtracks for video games.
Yeah, there's a video game soundtrack coming out later this year called Rhythm Rumble, and worked on that throughout 2020 with several different composers besides myself, because there's 13 genres of music represented in the game, from punk to classical. So the genres that I didn't feel I should be working on, I brought other people in on, because I can't encompass everything. I oversaw, executive produced it. And then I've been working with an artist the last 3.5 years, someone here in town, and her name is Michelle Rose, and she's just about to finish her degree at the Berklee School of Music in Boston.
So did you find a newfound respect for Prince being on this side of the aisle?
Absolutely.
With current artists like Janelle Monáe, Miguel, her, Lil Nas, who obviously show a heavy Prince influence in their music, is the funk pop music genre evolving in ways you like or dislike?
No, I like all these new people coming in. I haven't heard anything that bothers me at all. I like a lot of what I hear.
In your opinion, has any artist come along in the last couple of years or last 10 years or so that comes even close to Prince's aptitude?
Yeah, but in their own genre. I mean, it's a different, they're writing differently from Prince. It's a whole different vibe going on but technically, yeah, there's a lot of great people out there. Kendrick Lamar comes to mind, Travis Scott, Chance the Rapper, a great independent artist from Chicago who made great inroads for himself, not having to be with a major label.
Living just outside of Minneapolis, you're now at the epicenter of the anti-racism movement sparked by the killing of George Floyd that happened, I believe, just miles from where you live. And most recently, the police-involved killing of Deontay Wright. Do you think the Black Lives Matter movement and the anti-racism movement will make lasting changes in the US and the entertainment industry? Or do you think we're going to slowly devolve back into the same old ways?
I think there'll be a raised level of awareness because of what's going on. And I think a lot of people are dedicated now to bringing change to the issues we've had, but it's going to take a long time. It's a long road to get rid of systemic racism. The biggest problem is, how do we break the cycle of racism that's taught from generation to generation in families. Fortunately, I know a lot of people that were raised in racist families who broke away.
Yeah.
And they do. People do break away. Others don't.
Yeah.
It's just, hopefully that ratio will keep getting better and better. So you have to keep remembering we're just a speck of not even dust. We're not even a molecule. We're not even barely an atom or a quark in the sea of the universe. The human life is not even a blip in the scheme of the planetary history and time frame. If you're measuring time, we're all one here on this planet. This is our only home.
We saw that during the lockdown when we were mandated to stay in our homes. Literally, the air got cleaner quickly.
Yeah, the animals started taking over.
Animals started taking over. There was zero gun violence.
Right.
And the minute they cut us loose, we're right back to it.
Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, it's going to be hard to break the cycle.
What do you think the role of artists specifically needs to be in today's very highly charged climate? I mean, because I spoke to John Oates a couple of weeks ago, and he's, his perspective, which I've asked this question of different artists over the years. Some say, we are human. We have our right to speak our mind, and his perception was more like, who am I? I'm just an entertainer. My opinion really shouldn't matter, or it's not really going to change anything. What do you think the role of an artist needs to be in this kind of environment?
Well, what I noticed on the Academy Awards, that all the music, a lot of it was social issue lyrics and social awareness, the ones that were nominated for Best Song. So it came from movies that spoke of past social upheaval and social issues with racism and all that. So yeah, I think artists should more and more use their tools to raise awareness about issues to bring change. And
you think artists, their duty should to be reflect the times?
Yeah, there should be that, and also write about positive things and find positive ways to generate that message so it works to really get people to think.
Like you, I've traveled quite a bit during my time, and what I found as I travel is that travel is fatal to prejudice. It's fatal to bigotry, narrow-mindedness. I mean, you basically learn that all people cry, laugh, work, worry, die. I mean, was traveling a similar experience for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll never forget running into people who were prejudiced about certain things, even over in Europe.
Yeah.
But Europe, I feel, is more ahead socially than the United States, and when it comes to equality and social issues.
I think it's because we're isolated. We got a huge ocean on both sides of us.
Yeah.
Europe, you got a little more. You can take a ride for an hour and you're a different country and a different culture right then and there.
Yeah, that's part of it.
All right, I think we'll wrap this up here. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I'd like to promote the artists that are on our record label here, based in Minneapolis and New York, which is called V Media Entertainment, and the label is called V Records. And we have artists on there. If you go to vmedia.com, that website, all the artists are listed and featured on there, and there's links to their pages. And there's 5 artists on the label right now, and we also manage a few artists through our management division. And of course, during the pandemic, we couldn't do much to manage them, a certain amount, but we couldn't manage their careers touring or going on the road and all that fun stuff.
You must miss that, because I certainly do. I didn't know how much I would miss it, but
absolutely miss it. Sure, of course.
I miss the mundane things, the walking to your hotel room or just trying to find food at 2 a.m. I just
exactly. And look out for the Rhythm Rumble video game later this year, which will be on PC and then Nintendo Switch after that.
What's the premise of the game?
Punching people back, a lot of punching and fighting. kicking, but kickboxing and fighting in time to music and stuff,
Music.
landing punches while you're dancing on a stage fighting.
So kind of like a violent version of Guitar Hero.
Exactly.
Awesome.
I didn't get a firm date out of the game team the other day. I was trying to figure that out, and it's coming out. It's in the process of doing this and that right now. And I went, okay. So I didn't get a firm date. I'm sorry. Hopefully later this year, maybe by end of summer, if we're lucky. The pandemic slowed it way down. It was supposed to be out last fall. All right, so I'm going to get going, Joby. It's
All right,
really
Matt.
great talking to you.
You too, man. Be good. Be safe.
Yeah, and stay in touch anytime. All right, so I'm going to get going, Joby. It's
All right,
really
Matt.
great talking to you.
You too, man. Be good. Be safe.
Yeah, and stay in touch anytime.
Yeah, I'll send you a link to this when it's all set.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, Matt. Peace,
That's a
man.
good one. Yeah, bye. Yeah.